He's done it again, that Levy. He's done it again. He loves sacking managers, doesn't he? Absolutely loves it. Yes, official confirmation has come through that Ange Postecoglou has been sacked. I am actually quite surprised. Look, I'd say, following a review of performances and after significant reflection, the club can announce that Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duties. And then they followed it up with another tweet that's got it's like a photoshopped image of him holding the trophy and celebrating and stuff, saying, "We're extremely grateful to Ange for his commitment and contribution during his 2 years at the club. Ange will always be remembered as only the third manager in our history to deliver a European trophy. Thank you, Ange." Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm actually pretty surprised. I'm actually pretty surprised by that. I thought I didn't got one too many buttons open now. I think a bit too casual. I thought that cup win would have saved him. I mean, I don't think. I'll say up front, and I have been saying this kind of all along for the past few weeks anyway, that I think you can make a compelling case either way as to whether he should have been kept or whether he should go. I personally feel, and I was somebody that was staunchly Ange out for half a season at least. I don't know. It just this doesn't sit entirely right with me. I'm not apoplectic about it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be performative. I'm not going to pretend that I'm distraught that he's gone, because I can see that there's a compelling case to that. I think our league season, our league form for 20 plus months, about 20 months, has been relegation standard. It has been. However, he delivered as a major trophy. He delivered as a major trophy. And I think that should have earned him more time. And so this just feels like I say, the emotional reaction I have to this is that this feels wrong. It doesn't feel right to me that Spurs have done this. I know a lot of people are very, very pro Ange, and a lot of people will be very upset by this news, and I get that. I'm not, I don't feel that it's right. I'm just trying to I'm essentially trying to make the point that I'm not going to be performative here. I'm speaking exactly how I feel about this. I feel that it's wrong, but I'm not massively upset that he has gone. The follow-up question is, am I excited about Tom? I think it's the world's worst kept secret that it's going to be Thomas Frank. I think we all know that it's going to be Thomas Frank. Does that excite me? Not really. The funny thing, it's funny how this stuff works out. I was recording a pod this afternoon with Mark Nesbitt, and it just kept messing up. The internet kept going. It was literally maybe we were recording an hour before the Ange news broke. So it would have been out of date entirely. But I'll talk to Mark next week again, all about Thomas Frank and everything like that, because he is very excited, slightly on a Danish level, but also just on a footballing level, about the idea of Thomas Frank. I'm not really, if I'm brutally honest. I don't find it that inspiring. I do understand that he's very talented. He's done a very good job with Brentford. I'm sure he ticks a lot of boxes for Spurs, develops young players, all this type of thing. I mean, who would be an inspiring or exciting appointment at this moment in time? If you are watching this live, give me some ideas. Give me some ideas of who you think would be a good appointment for Spurs. I mean, it looks like it's going to be Thomas Frank, but if it's not, who would get you excited? I'm interested to know. I've said on the pod in the past few weeks, Xavi Alonso is that's the sort of signing. That's the sort of managerial signing Spurs could have. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like that's revelatory, Jack, isn't it? The guy that Real Madrid decided they wanted to be their manager would be an exciting appointment. But you know what I'm saying? There aren't that many exciting managers available to anybody. I don't think personally out there right now. I mean, Marco Silva. I like to say if we're at Marco, if Frank doesn't happen for whatever reason, and we're at Marco Silva, I'd actually be quite annoyed. I'll be honest. The guy is it? What's his name called? Speroni or something? No, not Sper. The Ajax manager that just went. I can't remember what his name is. Farioli. Nah, not for me. doesn't interest me. Inzaghi, I don't think will be interested in Spurs, and maybe as Silvio Dante said, this is anti-Italian discrimination. But I've just got a slight feeling that the Italian manager thing doesn't work in the Premier League. That's all. I don't know, or maybe not with Spurs anyway. I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm pretty. Let's see what a few other people are saying about this. Just Gems has said, "Thank God I'm too emotional sat here on my." That's why I've jumped on this, mate. Honestly, because I was like, "What is going on? What's going on here?" OE Grace says, "Not gonna lie, I feel like I've been punched in the chest." Ryan says, "Evening, Jack, mate." Hello, Ryan. Evening. Just Gem, Ange's statement has got me right in the feels. Oh, I didn't know Ange just released a statement as well. Let me see if I can find that. Bear with me. Postecoglou statement, because I can read that out now. Oh, here we go. Statement from Ange Postecoglou, CAA base. When I reflect on my time as manager of Tottenham Hotspur, my overriding emotion is one of pride. The opportunity to lead one of England's historic football clubs and bring back the glory it deserves will live with me for a lifetime. Sharing that experience with all those who truly love this club and seeing the impact that it had on them is something I will never forget. That night in Bilbao was the culmination of 2 years of hard work, dedication, and unwavering belief in a dream. There were many challenges to overcome and plenty of noise that comes with trying to accomplish what many said was not possible. We have also laid foundations that mean this club should not have to wait 17 more years for their next success. I have enormous faith in this group of players and know there is much more potential and growth in them. I sincerely want to thank those who are the lifeblood of the club, the supporters. I know there were some difficult times, but I always felt that they wanted me to succeed, and that gave me all the motivation I needed to push on. It's important to acknowledge the hardworking people at Spurs who gave me encouragement on a daily basis. And finally, I want to thank those who were with me every day for the last 2 years. A fantastic group of young men who are now legends of this football club, and the brilliant coaches who never once doubted we could do something special. We are forever connected. Order est facier. Ange. Well, that's yeah. Well done, lad. You know, it's what he does, isn't it? It's what he does best. And that's pretty, yeah, it's got me. It's got me a bit, that. Like I say, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about it. I'm not gleeful. I'm not sat here waiting to kind of coat off somebody like Vince Rigari or something. Much as I think he dug me out when they won the thing. I'm pretty sure he has deleted a good few weeks of tweets where he clearly stopped believing in Ange's ability to achieve something at Spurs. But I'm just throwing it out there. I'm pretty sure there's been a few tweets deleted by Vince Rigari before he started digging everyone else out. But whatever, we won't have to worry about him anymore. I don't think. Luis F says, "Man, I was not expecting that at all." G0 says, "I think he deserved the chance to prove himself. Even if I'm not confident it would have actually worked out." Yeah, that's exactly where I was, mate. That's exactly where I was. Ollie Whitefoot says, "I was pretty 50-50 with Ange in - Ange out. Proper heart versus head. I think it's ultimately the right decision, but feeling pretty glum about it now that it's been announced." Yeah. Just Gem says, "Frank is a good manager, but it feels wildly unambitious." I know what you mean. I know what you mean when you say that. But at the same time, who is ambitious? And I mean, like, what is an ambitious appointment? I guess somebody might argue giving Palace a load of money for Oliver Glasner. Looks like they're about to get screwed over and not be able to play in Europe, which is pretty disgraceful. If that happens, if UEFA can't find any sort of dispensation for them in that situation, it's kind of madness. So maybe Glasner without European football would be open to coming to Spurs. I mean, he's clearly the real deal. I imagine Palace would need a lot of money to get him out of his contract, though. I don't know. No idea. Benedict Fox says, "Legend of a man, incredible character." I'm sure you mean me there, don't you, mate? Everything else aside, we were privileged to have him and have him speak for us. Really meant something to me as a person. Yeah, fair enough, mate. And this is gonna hurt a lot of people. I get that. It is gonna hurt a lot of people. Ryan also says, "I was Ange out, but now that it's happened, I feel bad." Totally get it. Brian Park has said, "Frank is tactically flexible and a student of the game. Very well spoken too, and works wonders with young players. Think he'd be perfect for us." I think the only sort of concern is, Brian, that these things are all true. However, I think I'm correct in saying that really Brentford is his only significant managerial role. I think he had a small stint as a manager or an assistant coach before he joined Brentford, and then he joined Brentford as part of the coaching team. And he's obviously done amazing things at Brentford. But one might also say there's a lot less pressure on you at Brentford. He has kept them up. He's pretty much made Brentford a mainstay of the Premier League now, which, when you consider every single promoted team went down this year, and that kind of always happens, to be able to get Brentford into a position where, the infrastructure at the club does allow for this as well. The signings that the club makes, the scouting network, it helps a lot. But those players only really perform if the manager is of a certain quality, if the manager is able to handle all of those parts and keep it all together well. And I think he does that. He's clearly very good. But again, it's a massive step up. And I think lots of people had their concerns about Ange and his ability to step up when we first signed him. And that is a guy that he'd been at Celtic. He'd won the treble at Celtic. Frank hasn't come anywhere near to that sort of success. Neither had Pochettino when we signed him, and look what happened there. So it's not, they don't always have to have had major success as a precursor to doing well. I can just see why there is some concern around Frank and how he handles stepping up to this level of scrutiny. I mean, I've never met the bloke, but just from what I see of him, I don't really worry about his personality. I don't really worry about him being able to handle that. He seems like number one, he seems like a good guy. That's what I like about Frank. But he also seems like he's stern when he needs to be. He seems like a well-considered, stern character, knows his own mind, knows what he wants to do. So he's probably got the temperament and he's got the kind of the authority in the way he presents himself to be able to handle a step up like this. But that's still just a hunch. We don't really know, do we? Scott Stevens says, "What would Frank's aim be next season? Top eight? Question mark." And that is a very good question, and that's what I was talking to Mark about before our podcast messed up. What is the expectation of Frank as a Tottenham manager? What do we want from him? I mean, well, what we want is for Tottenham to win the Premier League, for Tottenham to win everything that we possibly can. That's what we want, obviously. But in a realistic sense, what do we want? I can't tell you what you want, but I know what I want is for Tottenham to, and I know there's a lot of this kind of conversation about, well, it doesn't matter. I'll take 17th and winning the Europa League. Yeah, but I'd rather take kind of at least like 5th or 6th place and winning the Europa League. And I think we are probably capable of doing that. Not next year, obviously, because we're not in the Europa League. Do I think we'll be able to? Do I think we have the personnel, the squad, anything to win the Champions League? No, I don't. I think that's just a nice adventure for us to have next year. Really, I know that sounds bobbins, but it's what I think. I would like for dash expect Frank to get us to finish in the top half of the table again at the very minimum. Really, I would like Spurs to be in contention for the top 6, maybe top 8, because it's hotly contested now. You know, suddenly, sort of blink and you've missed it, but the Premier League is really, really strong. It's really strong compared to when we were just kind of rocking up and getting fourth, at least most years under Pochettino. I think those days are gone, especially with the added news that Daniel Levy apparently won't be buying anybody until we've sold players. Tottenham have to sell before they can buy. I don't fully understand the PSR rules and all that type of stuff, but what I do understand is that at least is a factor in all of this. I don't know. It's a real. I mean, there's still all that other stuff on the side, isn't there? Where there's maybe money coming in. There's maybe a takeover happening. Who knows? You know, I don't really know. It's quite a strange one. Really, what's kind of where Spurs are. I mean, what can we expect with Daniel Levy in charge still? Don't know. You know, ultimately, that's what it is, isn't it? I would like to think Frank can get us into the top 6. That's what I'd like for him to do. I think we have a squad, or at least players that are capable of achieving that for Spurs. I think we have some really good players. We wouldn't have won the Europa League if we didn't have really good players. You can say whatever you want about Manchester United, but you know, it's funny how that tone shifted, isn't it? When we did actually beat them, well, they should have beaten them. When before it was all Spurs aren't going to beat a team like Manchester United in a final. Jack Underhill says, "Good thing this only took 3 weeks, and we don't even have the next manager signed on. The day Levy goes, we'll hit like Bilbao." Yeah, I mean, in some ways, what I will say is in some ways, I don't mind the club taking a bit of time, and at least it hasn't taken all summer. That's one thing I'll say. At least it hasn't taken all summer. It's been done relatively quickly, and I think it's right that they allowed everybody to kind of bask in the good vibes of winning the cup and all that type of stuff. Ange has gone on holiday, hasn't he, for a bit? You know, I think it's only right that I think on a human level, at the very least, they gave him that. They allowed him to just kind of bask in the glory of that a bit, enjoy his holiday, and then obviously come back and yeah, he's been biffed off, but he's going to be paid out a good few £1 million, which is more than any of us get when we lose a job. And last time I said that, somebody said it's never okay for somebody to lose a job. Come on, man. It's a wildly different context to somebody that works in the post office getting biffed off after 30 years and then being chucked through a legal proceeding. Like it's not the same. Deuces Wild said, I was starting to think they'd stick with Ange for one more year and then go hard for Nagelsmann or Poch after the World Cup. I kind of know what you mean. I do think with Pochettino, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I'm pretty sure Jack Pitt-Brooke said on The Athletic that with Pochettino coming back, that there might be a bit of a spanner in the works. And in so much as I think Pochettino, one of his big motivating factors to come back to Spurs was to be the guy to come back and deliver something big after they got so close before, to do it when he comes back. And now that Ange has actually done that, it might not be as palatable for him to ever come back. And in a weird sort of way, and I think anybody that's watched this and watched me talk about Spurs for any amount of time will know how much of a fan of Mauricio Pochettino I am. I kind of feel that as well now. I kind of feel that after we did the Europa, Sonny probably outbound soon. Ben Davis, whether he stays on, there's some talk that he's going to actually stay on as a coach or something at Spurs. But with basically all of Pochettino's team done, with the Europa League now won, I kind of feel like the chapter's closed a bit. And that doesn't feel as weirdly emotionally painful to say as I've maybe felt that it would in the past. Now I kind of feel like it would be a bit weird to go back to Pochettino in some ways, in ways that I can't quite enunciate properly or clearly or coherently. That's all kind of the same thing, Jack, that you said there 3 times. But I kind of feel like it might be a bit weird to go back to Pochettino now. There was that carrot there of him coming back, being the guy, but and just kind of the guy now in a way. He won us that thing. He did that. Yeah, he delivered that night of glory. And I just don't think it'll be the same. I think kind of Poch had his time, didn't he? And that's that. Nagelsmann, yeah, perhaps. He has given us a big red flag before, though, hasn't he? I think he sort of has shown zero interest in coming to Tottenham before. So, I don't know. Jose Aldi or Jose? Jose or Jose? Which sort of part of the Iberian Peninsula is that? Has said, feels like a breakup. A girl I've met on holiday for a week, boarding the same plane, knowing I'll never see her again. God, what a magical week it was. Are you saying that you want to have holiday sex with Ange Postecoglou? Jose? No judgment, no shame in that. I'm just asking because that analogy, it kind of feels a bit like that. OE Grace says, the emotional reaction I have is that this is grim, but I could live with that. The rational reaction I have is that the squad was unified and ambitious with Ange, and blowing that up seems unwise. Yeah, I know what you mean. Pedro Porro said something on international duty about, well, he said he basically didn't want Ange to go. And he did say something that hinted at at least the way I interpreted it, he did say something that hinted at that maybe at the dressing room wasn't entirely unified on that. He said something like the players who carry weight in the dressing room need to make it clear that we've achieved, that this manager has inspired us to achieve something big. He said something, it was something let me find it. Pedro Porro, Ange Postecoglou. Just try to find the quote now. he has built a very good group and coaches. He has built a very good group and coaches also need time. In the league, things didn't go well, but he made us win a trophy. That's important too. The people in the dressing room with weight have to understand that. But as I say, I'm thinking about the national team now. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was quite a weird kind of thing from Porro, but obviously his main point is that Ange won them something and he didn't want him to go. So I know what you're saying, Grace. I do know what you're saying. Um, Kevin Perez has said Klopp would have excited him as a potential signing. I don't think Klopp would ever come back to another Premier League club, to be honest. Well, I think he said that. I think he's as good as said that anyway. I especially don't think he'd come back to Tottenham, a club that there was a kind of right, and it sounds mad to say now, but there was a big old ding dong rivalry between Spurs and Liverpool for a few years, and I don't think he'd come back for that for Spurs. James Reed said Ange's leaving statement is pure class. El Swindley says it's only Poch who would get me excited. Jack Law, an old mate of mine, hello mate, hope you're well, says he gave us one of the greatest nights and moments of our Spurs lives, but also one of the worst seasons in living memory. I get the argument from both sides, but no manager of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club can finish 17th. And that's what I've been saying all season. So I'm not gonna pretend that I don't feel that, and I'm not gonna pretend like, as I said, I'm not going to weasel out of a lot of the stuff I've said this year about Ange, because I've said it in the moment and it has been an emotional reaction at times, but I generally have felt most of the things I've said, which is that the season league wise domestically has not been acceptable. And I guess that's the consideration that has been made, isn't it? That's the consideration that Daniel Levy and the powers that be, the decision makers at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, have made, is that Ange, is not the guy to take us forward. That if we miss out on a summer of bedding in a new manager, having the players who want to stay get used to that new manager's methods and everything, because we decided to stick with Ange, and this domestic season continues in the way that it is, because I think I do the one thing that I will say that I think very pro Ange people won't be overly happy to hear, but I do think is something that kind of gets omitted a lot from this discussion, is that it's kind of been framed that there were injuries this year and we were clearly trying to win the Europa League. That's what our kind of sights were set. Not just the Europa League, but a cup competition. That's what our sights were set on, because we went quite deep in most of the cups, or at least tried to make as good a fist as we could in all of the cups. And a lot of people put that down to the reason for why the domestic form was so bad. But the thing that I think is skirted over is it's kind of a continuation of really bad form domestically. We ended the season prior to this season really badly, playing really bad football, and that did continue over on into this season. And there's no guarantee that that wasn't going to happen again. So I reckon that will be probably the reason why this decision has been made. But I still don't feel great about it. Deep Sterific says, I'm not going to lie, I cried when I read Ange's statement. Last line floored me completely. Let it out, man. Does it good to have a good cry every now and again. Football's an emotional thing, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, people say that sort of stuff is cringe and all that. And I'm not going down into all the toxic masculinity stuff. I'm just saying, on a base level, people kind of, find emotion, or I find sentiment, especially like British people don't really sort of find sentiment sometimes quite mawkish and everything. But having a good cry is all right sometimes, isn't it? Magic Box says, gutted. I feel sick. I've had enough of this club. You haven't though, have you, mate? Like, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But you still love it, don't you? You still do. Hacker BLCPS says, gutted. It's a spectacular ending though. Fireworks, farewell. And yeah, I think that's one thing you can say of Ange, that it's probably a good way to duck out versus starting the season next year. It gets really ugly. Do you know what I mean? There's more ear cupping or booing, or it's all horrible, or it's all this. He's got the memory of that incredible parade. Everybody singing his song again. Pretty much won over the majority of the fan base, on a certain level at least. It's quite a nice way to say goodbye. He's leaving as the good guy. He is, you know. He'll get a good job elsewhere. I don't know who else is looking for it. Are Dortmund still looking for a manager? I don't know. They're playing Ajax. Ajax are probably still looking for a manager, are they? I don't know. He'll get a good job elsewhere, and he'll do well there, and he'll be fine. As he said himself, he'll be absolutely fine. Andy McGowan said, "What's Klopp doing?" Zeros and ones has said, "Rivalry aside, Ange's statement was class. Clap, clap, clap." Matt has said, "I'm not surprised. You can always count on Levy to make the wrong decision." Thomas Mullen has said, "Need to get a young European manager. Spanish and European players. Getting another English manager would be a big mistake." Don't think there will be an English. Charlotte, you are live to, well, you know, a few people. Yeah. What do you think? What's your? Yeah, he's gone.
I think.
Come.
Hello. I think it's very disrespectful, but I also think realistically, you'd only be keeping him out of respect. The season was dreadful. The win was amazing. I'd keep him just to thank him, but that's me, not Daniel Levy.
What about the players and stuff that have said, you know, keep him? He's unified the dressing room.
Yeah, I think it's a bold move, but maybe they're planning a big shake-up anyway. A lot of them may be going.
Yeah, it's fair. Romero might be off either way.
Yeah.
So yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like in an emotional sense, it just feels a bit whiffy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cold.
Yeah,
it's pretty cold.
But yeah,
Hello.
Hello. No, let's have a look. Anon says, "How will this affect our upcoming Beyonce concerts?" I don't know, mate. It's weird. Will sales to the F1 go-karting experience plummet in the wake of Ange Postecoglou sacking? You can imagine a big like whiteboard up in Levy's office. Skywalk sales down. The Dare to Abseil, whatever it is, experience down. No one's riding the F1 cars. It's just academy players going around on their break. That's it. Nobody's going to watch the Bottlemen or whatever they're called. That's me. That's me being old now. Catfish and the Bottlemen? No, I don't know. Something like that. Pieman 18. At least Ange goes out on a high. We'll get another top job in Europe. Yes. Jask says, "You could make the argument about credit in the bank, but Poch never got to cash in. Ange was in debt and paid it off with the trophy." Ooh, that's a spicy take, Jask. I quite like that though. I like a bit of, you know, chili flake being sprinkled into proceedings. Pesky B2 says, "This sacking is just a complete sucker punch to the squad that really did back him, even when fans wavered. I think it will take a long time to get back that feeling and solidarity." It could do. I do know what you're saying. The only thing I would say is that football does move on quite quickly. I think a lot of people within football know that this is the game. This is how it happens. Some of them get moved on to other clubs, getting other jobs elsewhere, this and that. Like, I don't know. I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying to a degree. But I think there is another side to that, which says that I think most of them are all kind of in that. They've all got that, that sort of social contract within the social contract, right? Within their own little ecosystem where they kind of know the score. They know what happens. Jack Underhill says, I'm glad Ange didn't thank the board one bit. He won in spite of them. Did he? I mean, they did give him the time. They they could have sacked him at Christmas time and they didn't. I don't know if it's fully in spite of them. They did back him, like, to a degree. He spent a fair bit of money and she apparently signed off on most of those players. I'm not going to be one to cape for like Daniel Levy and Enoch, but I don't know if it's. I don't know if I fully agree with that he won in spite of the board. I'm just saying. Darren says the Tacticos love Frank, but he is known for throwing cup competitions. That could be. It's one of those things where we could say that that's partly, with all due respect, because he's been a Brentford manager. Matt McDowell says, we're looking for a manager. We should get that Australian bloke. What's his name? Just won the Europa League. It's like the Mr. Snrub in The Simpsons, isn't it? Let's just see a few more of these comments that are going through. Liam Hennessy says, expect a new manager very soon. Yeah, I reckon it will be in the next few days, probably. I think that's probably part of the hold up as well, isn't it? I don't know, I guess. Chris Mason says, he would have started awfully again next season, and everyone complaining about his dismissal today would be screaming for him to get the sack before the end of the year. Ol says, Jack, you're making me cry reading out Ange's statement. Sorry, mate, but, like I said, let it out. Praetorian Dwarf says, keeping Ange would just be a sentimental act. Winning the Europa League was a fluke. If we lost the final, he would have been sacked 2 weeks ago, onwards and upwards. I think calling it a fluke is probably harsh, mate. Like, actually, definitely harsh. You've got to give him that. Like, we've had so many great managers, so many great squads down the years that haven't managed to get anything over the line. And he did it, Frankfurt wasn't an easy game. Bodo Glimt should be an easy game, but they were having, there was good momentum behind them at least. And Manchester United are still Manchester United. I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think you can call it a fluke. JHM says, bottom line is you can't lose 22 games in the league. Yep, fair. Ryan says, Jack, I think the sell to buy is more because of a homegrown situation more than PSR. Yeah, it maybe it is. It could be home. Is it what Champions League and all that sort of stuff? I don't know. Tobago Sasa says another rebuild, crossface. Not necessarily a rebuild, I think if we bring in a manager that can work, I think what we have tried to build at Spurs, the infrastructure, at least that they are trying to put in place, the sort of young players they're signing, is more of a plug and play infrastructure. So I don't think it means it has to be another complete rebuild. Yes, there will be a certain level of rebuilding, just of emotional connections, emotional ties, and everything, as I think it was Grace was saying earlier. But I don't necessarily think it means an entire rebuild. Alex Rainish says, I felt Ange out after he cupped his ear to the fans during the Chelsea game. I changed my mind listening to the likes of Porro and Johnson talk about him post Bilbao. Yeah. PG says, if the squad really didn't want him sacked, they'd not have served up some of the muck we've seen this season. I think that's also a fair thing to say. I do think that's also a fair consideration. Probably a little bit of balance to that. We could say, they have been short on numbers. A lot of the sort of secondary peripheral players that did step into the breach for a while did do very well. Everybody loves to dig out Ben Davis, but he stepped up and did really well for a time for Spurs. So yeah, like with anything, right? Like with anything in life, there's always a middle ground, isn't there? And it's boring and people don't like landing there, but it still exists. Niall says the board isn't interested in a manager's credentials of major success. They want someone steady that will have us consistently around fourth or fifth. Ange was punished for daring and doing. What's the point? Ambioris Castellanos. That's a good, fantastic surname. And wasn't Castellanos one of the Master League default players in the old Pro Evo games? I think so. Great lineage from there, Ambioris. Xavi Hernandez should be the next manager. Could be. He's out of a job, and we've seen. It's very easy. It's very easy, isn't it, to look at Luis Enrique, what he's done this year, or is it 2 years? I don't know. But at least what he's done this year at PSG, and say, well, Xavi Hernandez should be able to do it. But not many of us. When I spoke about it on here before, I didn't want Luis Enrique. Many people in the comments before we got Ange in didn't want Luis Enrique either. He was seen as somebody that we were like, no, not at all. Not at Spurs. No, thank you. That's just Paratici getting one of his boys in. And look what he's gone and done, man. Like, he's turned PSG into literally the best team in Europe. Unbelievable stuff. Would Xavi do that at Spurs? Make us the best team in Europe? Probably not. Could he make us really good? Maybe. Don't know. How tactically flexible is he? I don't think the La Masia tiki-taka 2.0 or whatever it is that he kind of cultivated at Barcelona for a while necessarily ports to the Premier League very well. Guardiola is an exceptional manager, isn't he? One of the greatest of all time. And I think even he's kind of bent in places a little bit, but not really. And also, do you know what, to be honest, I don't know enough about tactical stuff. It's not my wheelhouse. It's not what I do to really give a compelling or concise answer on this sort of thing. Maybe we should get someone on that does know how to do all that. But Xavi Hernandez, would he work for Spurs? I don't know. Dr. Jumbotron, PhD. Throw the bank to get Glasner or let the fans take turns managing. Llama All Sport says, I don't fancy Poch. The second time round never works. I don't know. This is so weird. Surely if you're booting Ange, the new guy is lined up and ready to go Monday. He could well be. Toby Jones says, with Ange gone, how far off the top four are we if we get a new manager? Does the squad actually have the ability to be in the top four? And is Frank good enough to get us there? I don't know on Frank. Honestly, I don't know. Is the squad good enough? Probably not. To be honest, where it is right now, I think the squad is very good, but I think it's sixth place to eighth place squad, isn't it? Really, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I think we got some fantastic players in there, but looks like Romero's off. And I just think the sort of teams in the sort of top four, top six really are all really strong. I think we need another superstar. That's what we need. We need a top player. We do. That's what we need. We're not going to sign one of those. So we got to hope that somebody, if we do sign Tell, does he take a step up and become that? Does Kulusevski kind of remember how good he was? Does he recover a bit over the summer, get back to his best, and then go beyond that? I don't think Kulusevski's hit his ceiling personally. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Adam McFarlane says, when you hire a manager, it's just luck. Some pay off, some don't. But I couldn't stand watching us under Ange. Wow. Fair enough, mate. He also says, Carrick, anyone? But life goes on. I think Carrick is one of the favourites, actually. He was a fantastic player, Michael Carrick. Fantastic player. And I understand that he is apparently doing a really good job as a manager. So who knows? Torstead says it's going to be Dyche, isn't it? I don't know. Could be. No, it won't be, will it? Sam Statham says 1 in 3 wins in the league since that Chelsea game. 66 games. Crap for 18 months. Absolute blagger. Lemon Tech says, I'm gutted, Jack. Need a cuddle, mate. Sorry, man. I can give you a virtual hug. Don't know why I said it in a weird American accent there. No real reason for that at all. And thank you. Somebody who's that? Robert Palmer has just given me a super chat. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate that. So he says, if it's Frank, it's the right call. News, an adaptable manager who goes to Anfield, grinds out a 0-0. Next week, we'll pump Sunderland with 4-0 with 80% possession. Apparently, Scott Munn has also been sacked. That's quite interesting. That's from who's just telling me that Adam McFarland has said Scott Munn also sacked. I'm just gonna, not that I don't trust you, I'm just fact checking you now. Scott Munn, Tottenham. Matt Law. Yeah, Matt Law has said that Scott Munn has also been sacked. Wow. Clearing the decks. Stephen King has raised a very good point here, which is we know for sure that Paratici is back. There's no chance he and Ange would coexist. And that is something we've heard all along. We've heard all along that Paratici has not been fond of Ange Postecoglou. Lots of the sort of ITK floating around the club and everything has said that, I think Paratici has been saying to get rid of him since December time. So, yeah, that is likely a large part of the consideration for that, right? Quite interesting. Matt has said that if Ange got us 8th place but lost the Europa League final, he'd still probably be in a job. That's why we're in a bad place as a club. I don't know. We can't say that for certain, Matt. I do know what you're saying, though, to a degree. I do know what you're saying. I do, I do think that the league form is concerning. It has been a worry. And I know we sort of take a step back and say I'd take 17th and winning something every single season, but I don't know. I don't think finishing 17th in the league. Look, your league position is generally the best indicator of where you are as a club, right? That's something I've stolen from Mark Nesbitt in the Unheard Tapes, the pod that we recorded earlier that will never see the light of day because, yeah, my internet connection broke. And I agree with that. And it's probably just not. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not so sure. Martin Edgar says he kept losing and refused to change tactically. Everyone was constantly injured. Still, there goes the best damn manager this awful football club has ever had. That's the Simpsons quote for anybody that isn't probably of a similar age to me and Martin, or he might be a young person watching The Simpsons. I don't know, or an older person. I don't know. Baz O'Brien says head over heart. I think it's the right call. Liam Toner says, I think we need another always look on the bright side of Spurs video, please. Mate, I would enjoy nothing more than doing many, many more of my Wally, silly videos and all that type of thing. But you know what? The internet's moved on. It's a less friendly place nowadays. Like, and I know people will say you should just do what you want to do, put it out there and ignore what people say. But that's easier said than done. That is easier said than done. You know, a good friend of mine put out a certain video a few years ago, and is still routinely harassed for it in a very unfair, unpleasant way. And you know, this stuff seldom comes from a bad place. People are just trying to entertain people and do silly things, as a lot of my old videos and stuff were. But I just, you know, everything's so competitive. Everything has to be so serious and nasty now. You know, everything's look what this fan base has done, cringe, and all that type of stuff. You know, it's just different. It was simpler times, mate. 2008 to 2012, I would say, simpler times on the internet in many respects. Anon says, do you think when he's sacked, Levy will crumple in on himself and implode in an explosion of ball of fire like Sauron at the end of Lord of the Rings? He might do. You could see his big flaming bald head hovering above the stadium, looking at you as you walk past. If you dare to walk into the stadium without having visited the club shop first, it'll look to you and send out some of the ring wraiths, Donna Cullen and Scott Munn and all that lot, who died in their duty to the club but live on eternally as these kind of twisted harpies that chase after people, whatever. I don't know. Chris from the UK says after 26 defeats in all competitions, this was inevitable. Just seeing a few more. Sour of Thai says, just remove Levy. Absolutely gutted. HS says, I prefer top six over trophies. Fair enough. No judgment. Like, it is quite nice to see Spurs doing really well, but winning stuff is also really nice, man. I think the main thing is it shouldn't have to be either or for a club the size. Let's go down that avenue. For a club the size of Tottenham, it shouldn't have to be top six or trophies. we should be more than capable of achieving both of those things. And that ultimately is a failing of the board. You know, I pushed back on a comment earlier that was saying that Ange succeeded in spite of the board. And I don't want it to be seen as though I'm kind of, as I say, caping for Enoch. The major failing of this, of the board, is that we've had to take these sort of drastic measures to even get a trophy over the line, finishing 17th. And the board probably should reflect on that to a certain degree. They should definitely reflect on the fact that it has taken so long for Spurs to get a trophy over the line under their kind of, stewardship. I think there are some mitigating factors. I think, Chelsea starting to exist in the time in which Spurs started getting good, Manchester City coming into the equation, now see Newcastle, now see Aston Villa dropping a lot of money, now see even teams like Nottingham Forest showing a lot of ambition, dropping a lot of money, but not so much those ones, more like Chelsea, more like City, who, when Spurs basically built gradually, sustainably, got to a point where we were able to challenge the top four and maybe, dare I say, make have a push for a title here or there. Chelsea and Manchester City came along. Look at our best Premier League season, 16-17. The team that stopped us winning the title, we got, I think, 86 points that year, did we? Which would have won you the Prem. As much as we talk about this year, 17th on, 38 points we finished on, being enough to get us relegated many seasons, 86 points. Could have also won us a Premier League on many occasions. The team that stopped us was Chelsea. And I mean, Nick have just never really been able to adapt to that. Not many clubs, not many ownerships can, but they can do. They definitely could have done more. They could have shown more ambition to try and get something over the line. And I think that we shouldn't be, we shouldn't be tossing up between top six or winning a trophy. Spurs should be getting both of those things. People can say whatever they want about us being entitled and stuff, but I think that's a fair enough point to make. Anon, continuing on our theme of the Lord of the Rings, chat says, "What are they? They were once executives." HS says, "Sorry, mate, I was being sarcastic over the top six over trophies." Well, fair enough, mate. You provided me with an interesting talking point anyway. Martin Egger says, "Glad you enjoyed the Simpsons reference. How do you feel today in comparison to the day Poch was sacked? They feel comparable." If I'm not going to lie, I was way more gutted when Pochettino went. I just was, I was a bit younger. I was younger when Pochettino took over, so it was a different part of my life that it represented. The real highs of Pochettino's era were unbelievable. And I think it was more kind of gutting because we didn't get anything over the line under Pochettino. So it kind of felt like there was an air of unfinished business here. I don't feel great about Ange getting sacked, but also I think he gets to walk off into the sunset with a big shiny trophy, a winner's medal around his neck, and hundreds of pints bought for him anytime he comes anywhere near Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, if he ever chooses to again in the future. He'll never. It's that thing, isn't it? He'll never be putting his hand in his pocket when he comes to Spurs again. And he's done a marvelous thing for the club. So it kind of feels different to me in that respect. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot more to unpack, isn't there, over the coming days, and it's going to be interesting to see who does come in. If it is going to be Frank, if it is going to be Xavi Hernandez. I mean, Xavi Hernandez is apparently Paratici's guy. So I don't know why I said that so weird. Paratici's guy. So maybe just again, Occam's razor, that's who it'll be. Maybe it will just be Xavi Hernandez who comes in, does the Spurs job. Doesn't have a club that we need to wrestle him out of a contract for, so we don't need to pay out a load. We've just paid a load of money out to Ange Postecoglou. I think between £4 and £7 million. I think I've seen various sort of different accounts of what it will be. Several £1 million anyway we've been paying out to Ange Postecoglou. I don't know how many £1 million it will cost us to get Thomas Frank out of his contract, for example. Xavi Hernandez, you don't have that worry. Xavi Hernandez, you have him being Paratici's guy. And also maybe a bit more of a star kind of value to it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to get someone on soon to talk about the different managers. But before I do that, go back. So Ben Bowman, a guy called Seb, not Seb who used to be on here, and a lad called Kish who does a lot of the kind of Spurs tactical stuff. They did a really, really good pod maybe a couple of months ago, I want to say now, let's say 2 months ago, where they spoke about all the prospective managers who could be taking over at Spurs. Real deep dive into it, tactical insight, really good analysis, really, really good. Quite a long pod as well, but a really, really good listen. I'm pretty sure it's on Ben's personal channel. So go check that out on Ben Bowman's channel. But I'll try to speak to somebody that's got a bit more tactical acumen than I do, and maybe break down a couple of candidates in the next couple of days for who we might bring in. But to everybody that has watched today, who has listened, thanks so much. I appreciate it. If you could drop it a like, a subscribe, all that type of thing, I'd really appreciate it. If you're listening on a podcast player, leave a rating, leave a review. Again, I would very much appreciate that. I am doing a charity cycle in about a month's time. I'll put a link to that in the description. Maybe you can read about the story there as to what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I put a tweet out about it. I've put it on Blue Sky. So yeah, you can have a look there if you're interested too. But any contributions to that would be massively appreciated. An interesting Friday evening, nonetheless, for everybody. But yeah, an end of the end of the Postecoglou era. Cheers, Gaffer. That's all you can say, really, isn't it? Delivered as one of the greatest nights of our lives as Spurs fans. Big shiny trophy. Wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, but do you know what I mean? There was a pot of gold. There was a pot of gold at the end of it. It wasn't really the cleanest analogy, was it? But you know, it sort of worked, didn't it? But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Big Ange Postecoglou. Go well, lad. Wish you all the best in your next role. Much love. Come on, you Spurs. Up the Spurs.